Hello. I've got too much stuff, but let me just get situated here. All right, am I using this?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's perfect. Okay. Just a minute. Anybody needs to stand up and kind of shake it off. I know Denny put me after lunch, so during nap time. Thank you guys for having me. I think I need to pick a bone with Denny later on about how I'm going after all of these amazing speakers. But we'll deal with that later. Like they said, my name is Sarah Grounds. I am the Executive Director of the City Lights Foundation of Oklahoma. I have already cried just even watching the story of Harvey, who is one of my dear, dear friends. If anybody has met him, I know there's some people in the crowd that have. He remains a dear friend today and has been on our volunteer staff for about 5 years now. Is in housing, doing beautifully, and truly I feel like we can hand him the mic and let him talk, and he would probably do much better than me, but he might not sit down, and I will. So I've heard several people say that none of us get care alone, and that is the truth. As I speak today, a lot of times I might say I, and I really mean we. I have had so many people come alongside me, and they certainly would not be here in this moment right now, especially if it weren't for my husband, Jason, who has allowed my craziness to continue for 10 years. Although he had a good part in getting it started, so it's his own fault. So a little bit about our organization. Like I said, we started Nightlight about 10 years ago. My background is nursing. I was a trauma ICU nurse for 13 years at St. Francis. Had a medical thing come up, and that shifted our whole world. I was still nursing, but through that medical thing, community came around us and supported us in every single way possible. And that really pushed us into looking at how we could be community to others. I don't think we had the words for it then, but as people surrounded us and took care of us and took care of our kids and our bills and food and all of the different things, coming out on the other side of that, we began to look at how we could do that for other people. And so Nightlight was born after a couple years, and my son and people coming alongside us, and since then we've done lots of different things. We have an office over in West Tulsa. We serve that community. We continue Nightlight today. I think last Thursday we had about 160 volunteers and 200 guests or something like that. So we serve a lot of people every single week year-round through that. And then at our office, we also serve people. We, through the pandemic, ran a hotel that was specific for people experiencing homelessness that either tested positive for COVID and needed a safe place to isolate because they were having to isolate out on the streets, or were medically vulnerable and needed a safe place to socially distance. That was told to be that it was going to last for 3 months, and it lasted 1 month shy of 2 years. So it was just a really beautiful experience of living side by side with people, pretty much. Through that, we were able to isolate 250 positive cases of COVID in the homeless community here in Tulsa. We also were able to permanently house 130 individuals. So we have housing stability coordinators, one's here today, hey Chelsea, she hates this so much, who continue to walk with the people that are in housing and continue to do case management. And walking with looks like everything. Our housing stability team is incredible in their love and compassion and giving of their time and everything else to the people that we walk with. And then we have outreach that we do. We also are working on City Lights Village, which will be a permanent community for people coming out of chronic homelessness, and we're hoping to break ground this year sometime for that. So that's kind of a little bit about what we do, but I'm going to jump right in. Some people don't know this about our name, and so I'm going to share it. City Lights. Lights stands for loving individuals, giving hope, and touching souls, and that is truly our mission. We are to be light in our community. We are to go into dark places and bring something of hope and care and love. So that's where that name comes from. The first letter of all those words spell lights. So we're going to go to our first slide, and we're going to stick there for a little bit. I don't know how many of you know Bob Goff. He's one of my favorites. And it says, we're all rough drafts of the people we're still becoming. And I start with that because, man, I am still becoming. I do not have it together. I do not know all the answers. I ask myself frequently, am I doing the right thing? And so this is where I start. And I think it's a starting place for all of us. So I'm going to be vulnerable, and I'm going to be real, and I'm going to introduce you to the Sarah of 2007. So I was, like I said, an ICU nurse, working with trauma and neuro stuff. And I had came in for my shift. I was working on the weekend and had came in, and the night nurse was leaving, and she gave me a report, and she said, "Oh, you've got this homeless guy." And when I say I was ugly, that is not even close to explaining who I was in that moment. She talked about how he smelled, how nobody wanted to take care of him. We knew his name somehow, but that is all we knew. He was brain dead on the ventilator, and we were trying to figure out who his family was. And so I complained out loud, and she went on, and I sat at the desk, and I just remember being so ugly about not wanting to take care of him, not wanting to have to deal with it, and all of the things. And it's funny, like looking back now, to how God is doing things in our lives when we have absolutely no clue what He's laying out before us. And so I sat there getting all my labs together, getting my meds together, getting ready to go in and assess him and everything. And there was just this thing that washed over me that said, that is somebody's. That is somebody's brother. That is somebody's child. That is somebody, and they belong to God. So I sat there for a minute more, and then I went in. Gowned up, I gloved up, I went in, and I stood at the end of his bed and looked at this man, very burly, huge beard, all this, stuff hooked to him on the ventilator, who I knew had passed, and who had a family or people that knew him that had no idea. And so as I stood there, I thought, man, Tulsa is not that big. Somebody knows who he is. And so I had remembered that they said that they had cut off his clothes and bagged them and put them in the closet. You know how ER does, they just cut everything off. And so I got into his clothing bag and I found his jeans, and in the back of his jeans I found a wallet. And so I dig through the wallet, and I'm like every pocket, and there's nothing in there. And in the very back pocket, folded in the tiniest paper, shoved way back in there, was a little piece of paper, and I pulled it out, and I unwrapped it, and it had the day center's phone number on it. And so I knew I was breaking every HIPAA rule there was, and I was going to ask Day Center to break them all with me. So I gave them a call, and I said, "Hey, this is Sarah from St. Francis. I'm calling. I have a guy here. This is his name. Would you happen to know him?" And they, of course, said, "We're going to have to call bigger people because it's the weekend, and we'll call you back." And so they called back about 30 minutes later, and they said, "We have one phone number for him. It's about 10 years old, so we have no idea if it's real or if it works or anything." And so I say, "Okay, thank you, I'll take it." And I call. And a lady answers the phone and she says, "Hello." She says, "Hello." That's what she says. I said, "Hi, this is Sarah with St. Francis." And she just started bawling. And she handed the phone to her husband, who I explained who I was, and he said, "We're on our way." So they came up, this beautiful family that talked to me about the trauma that this man had been through as a child, and about how they loved him, and about how they had tried so hard to get him to move into a trailer on their land, and talked about addiction and alcoholism, all of these different things, and that he had had a daughter that he was estranged from in California. and that they'd like to try to get a hold of her. And so they did. And so for the next day or two, I think it was 2 days, it was the weekend, so I was on all shift. They got her here from California, and she climbed up in bed with him as we extubated him and let him go. And I'll never forget them sharing with me the healing that they had, and at least having closure and knowing what happened to their person. And for his daughter to be up and have some closure and some healing as she was with him as he passed. And they were so sweet. Of course, they bring a plant and everything else, and here I am, you know, in all my ugliness, learning from this experience and having my heart shifted by people that have no idea the impact that that will have, you know, now 16 years or something later. 5 years later, we started Nightlight. Last year, we mobilized about 6,000 people. It is amazing what people are doing for others that they don't even know. In Tulsa, we have over 2,000 people waiting on housing list. We have people, and we know that that number is underrepresented. We have people with vouchers in hand and no place to move to. We have people dying on our streets. We specifically have lost 19 people in the last 2.5 years. But we also have people dying in our churches. They are coming in and leaving deader. We are not meant to just sit. We are not meant to just stay right here. I want to share a quote. Okay, y'all, this is my book. I love this book. If you've not read it, it's called Welcome Homeless. It's by Alan Graham from Community First Village in Austin, Texas. It's a little used, as you can tell. It says, I think now is the time that you and I change the way we view how we are to serve people. That it's not with an attitude that says, here is your need, here is your meal unit, here is your cot, here's your bread and juice. But rather it starts with you and I participating, not with our checkbooks, but with our lives. Yes. Allowing our threads to be so intertwined that their suffering is our suffering. Yes. It is with our relationships and our willingness to befriend another human being. It is with love. Remember that communion without sacrificial love is just bread and wine. Don't just give the homeless a handout, give them your hand. Community is not convenient, but we are created for it. Last night, Shane talked about interruptions, and we need our lives interrupted. We are in a community crisis. We have seen for our friends on the street how the catastrophic loss of community has contributed to their homelessness. And the only way to bring restoration is through community. Several people today or yesterday have spoken about the people that came alongside them to get them to where they're at now. We must know people to be able to care for them. We have to know their name. We have to know their story. We must unnumb ourselves to other people's pain. We must believe in God's abundance, that there are enough resources, there is enough time, there are enough people, and there's enough space. We can't keep moving someone to the next space because we want ours for ourselves. But we also have to teach other people to believe in that abundance because so many people have not seen it, they don't know it. We must go out, welcome in, and build up. It will not be easy. Jason and I, and he will probably account for this in harsher ways than me, because I tend to like it all wrapped up in a bow. We have had our whole lives turned upside down in the last 10 years. You will have your hearts broken. You will have your beliefs challenged. You will wonder if you're doing the right thing or making a difference. You will hear stories that will change you and stay with you forever. People may rise up against you, probably will. They may even sit outside your home. We've had that. People will say things that are untrue and try to shut you down in lots of hurtful and painful ways.
Amen.
God did not promise that it will be easy, but he did promise that he overcome the world.
Yes.
Jesus' life was not easy.
Amen.
I don't know why he put me here. At times it would be so much easier to just throw in the towel and go veg on the couch. It would be so much easier. I don't know. It would be easier to return to who I was before, but that person did not know the fullness of love. That person did not know the fullness of community. That person did not experience stories and life in the way that they were created to. This won't be easy. This work is not easy, but it'll matter, and it will be worth it. I got a message a few weeks ago. Stop, hold on. Stop. I'm gonna get there. Okay. So I got this message, and when she says you, it is not me. Like, just please hear that. We have an amazing team and a lot of people and things in God that has gone before us in our work. But this message came in at a time that I so needed it.
You literally saved my sister's life, and no one else could take her. You took her in until she got housed. Without your program, that would have ended my sister's funeral, and not until Christmas she was reunited with her children and grandchildren.
We get those stories every single day, every single week. We get to sit with people. We've done street sleep outs where we have been invited to stay in a friend's encampment, and we've watched as they've brought out their best for us. We get to walk with people in ways that are incredible and rewarding and just amazing to watch transformation happen right before our eyes. I can tell stories at our hotel of women just collapsing back into the bed in laughter and tears because they finally have a safe place to lock a door and come in and have space that they don't have to be on guard the whole time. Like, this work is not easy, but it is so rewarding. I'm going to share one final story. Denny isn't like telling me to wrap it up yet, but I will.
Keep going.
I have one final story, and I am so sorry if you know me well and have heard the story, you get to hear it again. We're going to stay here for a second. So, like I said, I was a nurse, still have my nursing license, but and so when we very first started Nightlight, we had lots of different things under there, and one of those stations was foot washing. And so somehow, because I'm a nurse and they think that that's all that nurses do is wash feet, I got picked. And so we get out there, we set everything up. Of course, food is more important than foot washing at the time. So, and they didn't know who we were. Nobody knew who we were. It's like our first or second night out there. And so we set up, and people are getting food. And so as they're sitting down and eating, I kind of start making my way around these tables, and I'm like, hey, you want your feet washed? They're like, nope. And so I'm like, okay, next table, you know. And so I finally come up on this one table of guys. They're like probably in their 20s. And I said, hey, you want your feet washed? And this one guy goes, I guess. And I was like, oh my goodness, I have to wash somebody's feet now, and I do not know what I'm doing. And so he comes over and sits down. His name was Hurricane. He had been, he lost everything in Katrina and ended up here and was on the streets. And so I'm washing his feet, and he's just talking because I have absolutely no idea what to say. I don't know what I'm doing. I truly don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what to say. I've not grown up around homelessness. I have no experience. And so I'm sitting there, I wash his feet, and when I get done, I'm like on my knees still, and I tap him on the knee, and I look him in the eye, and I said, thank you for spending time with me. And he goes, you're making me so uncomfortable. And he said, I hate eye contact. And I was like, I'm so sorry, you're done. Come on. And so he gets up and goes, and I worried so much over him all week. I'm like, I don't know what calling is. I don't even know what that means. I don't know why I'm here. Who am I to walk into this space and think I know what I'm doing? I have no idea. And I was so upset because I really, really, true to everything, wanted him to be able to walk in and anybody else that walks under that bridge to feel seen, known, and loved, and safe. And I felt like those were things that I didn't allow him to feel that night. So went home, worried about it all week. Of course, after that story, nobody's gonna lead foot washing, so I come back and next week it's still me. And so I set up and let everybody get their food and everything like that. And I'm standing there. We only used half the bridge at that time. We have to use the whole thing now, but I'm standing there watching people eat, and I see Hurricane come from the corner of the bridge, and he walks right up to me, and he looks me in the eye, and he says, sit down now, it's your turn. And one of my friends caught the picture. Sometimes we think we're the teacher, and our world gets completely turned upside down. The world becomes our classroom, and someone who we never expected becomes the teacher. God uses it all. He uses hurricane, he uses me, he uses a dirty old bridge.
Yep.
Every single one of us are exactly, perfectly flawed enough to be used.
Yes.
Brokenness connects to brokenness. So get your story turned upside down. And if you think you have it all together and you don't need to move in any direction, you've got it all good, yay for you. I know how that works. But also, maybe invite somebody else in to get their story turned upside down. Because my life is so much richer from the people that I have met along the way, from the people that I've met under bridges and in alleys, pulling frozen blankets off of them, loading them up, and taking them to a hotel, to my staff, who is incredible, who teaches me constantly how to love people, to our partners, and all the people in between. So this is one of my favorite other quotes. There's a whole lot. I could go on and on with my quotes. I commit to going deep into the pit of human despair or to hold the rope for those that will. I have to give credit to my preacher's son for this picture to go with the quote. But you're needed. If your comfort zone is pushed by just holding the rope, then hold the rope. If you aren't in a pit or don't know anybody that's in a pit, you need to get out. Because you are needed, and your life will be changed, and you will be taught by the most incredible teacher that you never even knew you needed. And so I thank you. I thank Denny for giving me the opportunity to share. Thank you all for listening. Thank you to all the speakers. And that's all I got.